Open your fridge right now, and I'll bet you've got something in there that says low fat on the label.
Yeah. Probably a couple things.
You were trained to reach for that. And the people who trained you weren't doctors. They were sugar salesmen. Here's the part that should bother you. Everything you think you know about which foods are bad for your heart. The eggs you skipped, the butter you swapped for margarine, the steak you felt guilty about, a huge chunk of that traces back to one stretch of the 1960s and 70s.
Okay, and let me guess, something happened during that stretch.
The sugar industry was quietly writing checks to some of the most respected scientists in America. Not to lie, exactly. It's cleaner than that, and honestly more disturbing. They paid to change the subject, to make sure that when the country went looking for what was making people sick, everyone was staring at fat, while the sugar bowl sat right there in the middle of the table, untouched.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory, though.
It's in the paperwork, their own internal memos, dug up decades later. Let me show you how they did it. Rewind to the 1950s. Americans are having heart attacks at a rate nobody's ever seen. Middle-aged men are dropping dead on golf courses, and doctors genuinely don't know why. So the science splits into two camps. On one side, a physiologist named Ansel Keys. Keys is convinced the culprit is fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. He runs a massive project called the 7 Countries Study, and he builds a case that fat clogs your arteries. He's aggressive, he's charismatic, he ends up on the cover of Time magazine. The man is a force. On the other side, a British professor named John Yudkin. Same rise in heart disease. Totally different suspect. Sugar. He notices that as countries get richer and eat more sugar, heart disease climbs right alongside it. In 1972, he writes a book about it with maybe the least subtle title in nutrition history. Pure, White, and Deadly.
So it was fat versus sugar. Two real scientists.
Two real scientists. And for a few years, it genuinely could have gone either way. This was a live scientific debate. Unsettled, both sides with evidence. It was not supposed to be decided by whoever had the most money.
But I'm guessing that's exactly what decided it.
Guess what decided it? In 1965, a trade group called the Sugar Research Foundation, basically the marketing and lobbying arm of the sugar industry, is watching this debate very nervously. Because if Yudkin wins, if the public decides sugar is what's stopping their heart, that's the whole business. Gone. So they do something about it. They launch an internal effort. In the documents, it later gets a name. Project 226. And the plan is simple. Fund research that takes the heat off sugar and puts it on fat. They go to Harvard. 3 nutrition researchers, Mark Hegsted, Robert McGandy, and Frederick Stair. And Stair is not a nobody. He founded the nutrition department at the Harvard School of Public Health. These are the men whose names make a study credible.
And they paid them.
They paid them. About $6,500 in the records. Which sounds small until you adjust for inflation, and it's closer to $50,000 today. For one paper.
Okay, but scientists take industry funding all the time. That's not automatically corrupt.
Right, and that's exactly why this next detail matters. The sugar group didn't just cut a check and hope for the best. According to the documents, they told the researchers what conclusion they wanted. They sent the studies to include and the ones to ignore. One sugar executive wrote that they were particularly interested in the research blaming sugar because they wanted it picked apart. And one of the Harvard researchers wrote back that he was well aware of what the industry was after and reassured them he'd deliver.
So the conclusion came before the study.
The conclusion was ordered before the review was written, and in 1967, they delivered it in the single most prestigious place they possibly could have.
Which was?
The place that guaranteed every doctor in the country would read it and believe it. The New England Journal of Medicine. Still today, one of the most respected medical journals on earth. In 1967, it publishes a 2-part review of everything known about diet and heart disease. And the review lands exactly where you'd now expect. It waves away the studies pointing at sugar, calls the evidence weak, picks at the methods, and it points firmly at saturated fat and cholesterol as the real threat.
And did it mention who paid for it?
Nowhere. Not a word about the sugar money. Because in 1967, journals didn't require anyone to disclose their funding. So to every doctor reading it, this looked like pure, independent Harvard science in the New England Journal of Medicine. Case closed. That paper became a brick, one of the foundational bricks in the wall of fat is what's killing you. Other researchers cited it. It shaped textbooks. It shaped what doctors told patients. And then it climbed higher, because a few years later, that same Mark Hegsted, the one funded by sugar, helped write the US government's first ever dietary goals. In 1977, a Senate committee under George McGovern told every American to cut fat. And Hegsted went on to run the nutrition division at the USDA.
Wait, the sugar-funded guy ended up writing government nutrition policy?
Follow the line. Sugar money, to a Harvard paper, to the New England Journal, to the US government's dietary advice, to the food pyramid on your childhood classroom wall. That's how a marketing problem for one industry became the official health advice of an entire country. Now here's where it circles back to your fridge, to that low-fat label. Once the government said, eat less fat, the food industry heard a business opportunity and sprinted at it. Low-fat everything. Fat-free everything. A whole aisle by the 1990s.
Oh, Snackwells. My mom used to buy those by the case.
Snackwell's cookies. Fat-free, flying off the shelves, people eating the whole box because no fat, no guilt. But there's a problem with taking fat out of food. Fat is what makes food taste good. Pull it out and you're left with something that tastes like wet cardboard.
So what did they put back in?
Sugar. And I want you to really feel the loop that just closed. The sugar industry helped make the country afraid of fat. The country demanded low-fat food. And to make that low-fat food edible, manufacturers poured in sugar, the exact ingredient the whole panic was supposed to protect. For 30 years, millions of people thought they were eating healthy, skipping the egg yolk, buying the fat-free yogurt with as much sugar as a dessert, feeling virtuous about it. And obesity and type 2 diabetes didn't slow down in those years. They exploded.
And Yudkin, the guy who called it?
Sidelined. Discredited. His warning waved off as scaremongering. He died in 1995. Mostly forgotten. Before anyone admitted he might have been right the whole time.
So how do we even know all this?
For decades, we didn't. Then in 2016, a researcher at the University of California, San Francisco named Kristen Kearns did the unglamorous work. She went digging through old archives, literal boxes of the sugar industry's internal letters and meeting notes from the 1960s. And she found the paper trail, the memos naming Project 226, the letters setting the conclusion in advance, the money. She published it in JAMA Internal Medicine, another major journal. And suddenly that 1967 review wasn't just an old study. It was evidence.
Did the sugar industry ever respond?
They did. And to be fair, I'll give it to you straight. They basically said, that was 50 years ago. Disclosure standards were different. And yes, we should have been transparent. Which is true. In 1967, nobody was legally required to say who paid. But it was legal at the time is not the same as it didn't do any damage. The damage is 50 years of a country eating the wrong way, built on advice one industry paid to tilt. You can't unring that bell by saying the rules were looser back then. And here's the uncomfortable part. It worked. Completely. Yudkin lost. Fat took the blame for 2 generations. If an archivist hadn't gone digging in 2016, most of us would still have no idea it ever happened.
So, what's the takeaway? Fat's actually fine, and sugar's the real villain?
No. And that's the trap. Flipping one simple villain for another is exactly how we got here in the first place. The real lesson is quieter and more useful. The science says is only as clean as whoever funded the science. For 50 years, the most trusted institutions on Earth, Harvard, a top medical journal, the US government, passed along a conclusion that started life as a sugar industry talking point. And nobody in that chain was cackling like a movie villain. Most of them probably thought they were doing real work. That's what makes it stick. So the next time a food is sold to you as the healthy choice, low fat, low carb, low whatever the current panic is, the honest question isn't just, is this good for me? It's, who benefits from me believing that? Because somebody, somewhere, is usually paying to point your attention at one food, and it's almost never the one they're quietly protecting. So I've got a real question for you, and I actually want to read the answers. What's a food you were told your whole life was bad for you that you've since started to wonder about? Butter? Eggs? Red meat? Drop it in the comments, because I read them, and the patterns in there are usually wilder than the video.
And if you want more of these,
the ones where you follow the money and the official story falls apart, subscribe. There's a new one every week, and this is exactly the kind of thing that gets buried in your feed if you don't. I'll leave you with the line worth remembering. They didn't have to lie to you about fat. They just had to make sure you were looking at it instead of the sugar.